One of my favorite movies growing up would have to be the Blair Witch Project from 1999. I was a bit too young to catch it in theaters or really experience the cultural zeitgeist of it at the time, but once I aged into my love of horror movies, I watched this film again and again and again, to the point of it becoming something of a comfort. So when it was announced that a video game was set to be released in 2019, I was more than a little intrigued. Curious about how they were going to take this film, which is essentially about getting lost in the woods, and turn that into a full-fledged playable narrative. Did they successfully make the transition? Let's find out. The game centers around our character, named Ellis Lynch, voiced by the same man who had a stint of work around the same time voicing Thomas the Tank Engine. Completely irrelevant, but just kind of funny. Anyway, Ellis is having a rough go of it. He's on the rocks with his wife, he's estranged from the police force, suffering from severe PTSD, and just generally has completely lost his lead on life. However, when a local boy named Peter Shannon goes missing in the Black Hills Forest near his hometown of Burkittsville, Maryland, of his own accord, Ellis decides to join the hunt. People around him not exactly thinking it's the best of ideas.
Did you hear about the missing kid? I'm joining the search.
Oh, wow. Okay. You think that's a good idea?
Why wouldn't it be?
But fear not. He's brought his dog Bullet, who's essentially his only lifeline keeping him from crippling, debilitating anxiety. Obviously, you can see where this is going. Ellis and Bullet search the woods for the boy, finding a lead that drags them deeper into the mystery of what happened to this kid. Apparently, he was abducted by a deranged man named Carver, and the story focuses on your attempting to find out where exactly he's keeping him. Along the way, being plagued by visions of Ellis's mistakes, which continuously grind on him as he makes it deeper and deeper into the Black Hills Forest. To me, the story is decent, if not somewhat forgettable. Ellis, as a character, simply has too much going on. I won't go into it to avoid spoilers, but he's got like 4 critical traumas I can think of off the top of my head, and most of the information about that is backloaded in the story, leaving the final leg of the journey, the longest one, feeling like it drags. Most of the game is spent just wandering the forest with Bullet, with character interactions mainly being confined to audio from either a walkie-talkie or your cell phone. You'll have calls from your wife Jess, attempting to patch up the relationship, walkie-talkie conversations with Sheriff Lanning, a friend who's leading the search for Peter Shannon, then eventually Carver, the kidnapper who seems to have lost himself to the whims of the forest, all the while being plagued with visions and hallucinations of Ellis's trauma. Interesting, but does this say Blair Witch to you? Because to me, no. It's already difficult to imagine how you could even turn the bare-bones nature of the Blair Witch Project into a game, but this isn't what I'd envisioned. As I said in the beginning, the movie is largely just about getting lost in the forest and being plagued by forces you barely see or comprehend. If I remember correctly, there is no mental torment that these characters are going through beyond just the bleakness of their situation. The witch's influence is predominantly tied to leaving stick figures around and whatever drives people to comply, like Josh leaving the camp and Mike staring into the wall at the end. Here, though, the torment is much more psychological for Ellis, who succumbs to his own trauma. To me, the story is more reminiscent of Silent Hill than Blair Witch. Which is funny considering that Bloober Team, the developers, would go on to make the amazing Silent Hill 2 remake. Does that mean the story is bad? Not really. It's a bit convoluted and doesn't strike the same feeling as the movie, but the mystery was engaging enough that I wanted to see its conclusion.
Ellis to base. Peter didn't run away. He was kidnapped. I found a tape. It shows the man who did it.
What? How did... Wait, a tape? In the middle of the forest? That would be serious.
Yeah,
However, while I think the story strayed a bit too much from the premise for my liking, the gameplay is where they attempted to hit some of those iconic beats. You got your witchy sticks. You get your looping geography. You even get to visit the iconic backwoods witch house. Blair Witch is largely a walking simulator with light puzzles and an emphasis on dog-led exploration. To begin with Bullet, he's probably the most unique thing this game has going for it. He's not insanely complex, but as your only real companion, he's very involved in the events of the game, and the gameplay reflects that. You've got a wheel of 5 commands that you can give him, including Pet, Stay Close, Stay, Reprimand, and Seek. 4 of these 5 are pretty non-essential, with Pet being important only for a specific ending. The main one that you'll likely use is Seek, where Bullet uses his super dog powers to track down scents from time to time.
Bullet, Seek! Nothing, eh?
Outside of him, you've got your gadgets, the walkie-talkie, the phone, your backpack, a flashlight, and a camera. The walkie and phone being used for communications, the backpack just holding the random items you pick up on your journey, with the flashlight and camera being the other frequently used items. The flashlight does what flashlights do. I mean, we're not reinventing the wheel here, but it's also helpful to ward off tree creatures when they attack later in the game. Shine your light on them for a second, and they don't much appreciate it.
What the hell?
The camera, on the other hand, is a much more interesting tool, as well it should be. If you've watched the first movie, then you know that it's a pioneer in the found footage genre. Thus, emphasis on the camera makes total sense, as it's kind of a lifeline to the franchise. In the game, you'll find these tapes to watch that act as a mini time puzzle, with things that appear in the footage popping up in real life if you stop it at the correct frame. Then, later in the game, it's also used to see things that can't be seen with the naked eye. Hidden enemies, text, or paths of blood left for you to follow. It makes sense to have the camera be this kind of multifaceted tool, and it's one of the things that I think this game gets most right in relation to the source material. However, while I'd praise it for the camera, that's really about all this game has going for it, and it's not that cool to really sell me on the entire experience. Overall, I think this game is just fine. It's not horrible, it's not exceptional, it's just okay. I'd probably give it something like a C-. It's not broken, it's not buggy, it's just not very memorable, and I don't think that it takes enough from the source material. Instead, it tries to give us a troubled character and psychologically torment him for his misdeeds. Again, I feel like they were trying to make a Silent Hill in the woods. Maybe you could say that they took inspiration from the second movie, Book of Shadows. In that movie, the witch kind of torments a tour group, but a sequel that's barely remembered isn't really where I think they should have taken the main inspiration from, if they did. I like that movie, but it is in itself a far departure from the first. But yeah, those are my thoughts on it. A mild game from a beloved IP. Anyways, thanks for watching. Hope to see you in the next one.